farming's not in my family background. Y'all probably ought to just let Tony and Ed talk more. But I'll say what I've got to say, and I'll be brief. I know it's getting late. I got married, moved back to Tennessee. I'm originally from Tennessee. Bought a farm and started farming all in the month of April of 2013. So I've only been farming less than 3 years. But I got 3 years of mistakes to educate y'all about, so plenty of opportunity for learning here of what not to do. We've got a small 12-acre piece of land with our house and a workshop and barn storage and things like that on it. I've built a high tunnel through the EQIP program with NRCS. I've got a small 12 by 12 greenhouse that I start vegetable plants in. I originally started the farm with a fruit and vegetable CSA model. So we bought the farm. You can flip a slide. I'm about diversity in farming, and I want to try a little bit of everything. And I know a little bit about a lot of stuff and not a lot about anything. And I just moved to Windows 10, or Windows 10 on a new laptop. So Dana's going to struggle, but it's my fault to get through my pictures. I do bees, flip a slide. I do mushroom logs. I've got chickens for eggs. I've bred goats. I've had 4 or 5 nannies that kidded for 2 years, and like Tony said, it was really they were pets, and they got out of hand, and they're really nice right here, and 6 months later, there's nothing nice about them. They jump around when they're little and they're cute and all that. But after that, I was done with goats after 2 years, so that was short-lived. Like I said, I want to try everything. Not that I want to do everything. Got mushroom logs here. I've got about 200 logs that I've drilled out for shiitake and golden oyster. I sell those to a couple restaurants in Knoxville, and my wife and I consume an inordinate amount of them. There's my little greenhouse for starter plants. For the summer season of 2013 and 2014, I had a CSA that was just home delivery. And I planted 2 acres my first year and about 2.5 acres the second year, and did it in rows and rotated rows to have a little bit of crop rotation to let the soils build back up, so I don't plant the same portion of my land every year. I've got about a 5 or 6 acre field that's open. 3 of it's upper and marginal soils. It's rocky and heavy clays, and 3 that's down by the creek that is a lot of loess and more nutrient rich. And so if you want to go on to the next slide, I do some in row hoop houses to start earlier and finish later to extend the season. Started the first year with 22. I averaged about 22 boxes a week for CSA, and that was an 18-week season. The next year I grew to 28. Then I got a full-time job, and I wanted to continue doing farm projects. I managed the Boone Street Market for a year, and did a lot of education in local food systems and things like that associated with that, and that was part of my passion. But I also wanted to do something farming, but I couldn't do the CSA because that was full time for about 7 months. It was extremely time consuming, and I haven't done the wage per hour that I got for farming vegetables, but I'm going to talk more about turkeys and chickens, and I have figured that out. Neither of them are profitable, so I don't have the answer for you on what the best profitability on farming is. Other people will know that. I can tell you what not to do. So once I started farming the market, I wanted to do something that on the livestock side that could fill a niche, and I could do a little bit of work in the morning, go do my 8 or 9 or 10-hour job during the day, and then do a little bit in the evening, and still have some profitability from our farm. So there was a gentleman that had been doing poultry pretty much full time and was getting older and phasing out of it, and we got into some discussion, so we partnered up. He already had the feeders and the waters and fencing and all that, so I didn't have that initial startup cost, which was nice, I come to find out. But we pretty much split the labor up and split the feed costs and the chick cost, and he sold at the Jonesboro Farmers Market, and I handled the sales through the Boone Street Market and some other restaurant sales and event sales and things like that. We ended up doing, we did batches of 250 birds, 250 chicks, and did 8 batches of 250 between February and into September this past year. And did hormone-free, no growth regulators or antibiotics or anything like that. And just because we wanted to fill the niche of what customers we felt like were asking for. And everybody knows I wanted to do pasture raised, and my farm is surrounded by predators. There's 10 things that kill chickens too, and they're all different, and I've got them all. And, so when it's all nice and in theory, when you see the chickens out there running in the pasture and they look all happy and everything, and the next second a hawk is flying off with one of them, that chicken might as well, he might have liked to have been in a pen his whole life rather than being halfway through it. But I bored on and tried to get innovative, and we kept the chicks in a brooding house for about 3 weeks and moved them out into a 5,000 square foot. If you want to move down a couple slides, Dana. Down one more. Here's my brooding house there. That's I built a little log cabin out of some railroad ties that I got free off of Craigslist. If you want to be profitable in farming, get innovative with it, with the spending the money. You'll get innovative with making the money, but if you spend less, you make more, and that's how I make anything. I get creative. That house will house 240 birds for about 3 weeks before it gets overcrowded, and that's a 18 by 10 roughly. And then I move them out into a field. This back one to slide 10. Can't really see all that well, but that's electric poultry fencing. People use it for goats and all kinds of small livestock, but I did about 5,000 square foot for 250 birds. And as the birds get older, that flock gets older, those numbers go down. I ended up taking about an average of 215 to the processor. So that's a 20% loss over 9 weeks. 8 to 9 weeks is the duration that we grew them before they went to the processor, and we overlapped those batches. I always had a batch either in the brooding house or into the field, and taking a batch to the processor, and just did all that summer, and ended up with about 1,700 birds on the. Those are Cornish Cross. We did some Freedom Rangers as well, and we did started with 70 turkeys, and I'll talk turkey later. So took them to Foothills Processor in Marion, North Carolina. So your options for poultry, rabbit, processors, ruminant, you've got Snaps Ferry, you've got Washington County, you got Harris Brothers, all within a short drive around here. Poultry, you drive a little over 2 hours to Marion, North Carolina, go to Foothills, or you go to Nico Processor in Nico, Tennessee, which is, no one knows where that is, so it's other side of Knoxville, right on the edge of Middle Tennessee, East Tennessee, which is about a 3-hour drive, I guess, to get to Nico, or you drive 3 to 4 hours up to a couple processors in Kentucky. And their prices vary quite a bit, so transportation cost is a killer with poultry, and there's a lot of killers with poultry. before I get too negative on chickens and turkeys, I think it can be done. This is my first year. It was a test. I think it can be done and it can be profitable, maybe not on the scale or in the way that I did it, but if you get innovative with the breeds, where you're keeping them, how you graze them, if they're confined, what processor you take them to, how you cut them up, if you do use some antibiotics, coupling your transportation with other farms that maybe want to do something else, you can get innovative and be profitable with it. We were profitable. I was actually probably hourly rate that I was paying myself, probably more profitable with poultry than vegetables over a 12-month span, and was able to have a job, a full-time job. So there's a lot of things to learn in this, and I'm not necessarily giving up on it. I'm hiking the AT this summer, so I won't be farming this year. Probably not much farming at all going on this year because I'll be on the trail for 5 months, but I haven't given up on this. I think I will do it on some scale, probably a larger scale than what I did to be more profitable. I had some guy over the last couple of years when we were talking chicken say you either need to do 10 birds or 10,000 birds to have, you know, time input profitability ratio with chickens, and Tony can probably speak more of that as far as the scale goes. Go ahead, sir.
You're talking about pens. Have you ever used any like Joel Salatin's style pasture pens?
I know Joel just through the short, the mobile pins. Right, yeah. I have. You'll see on a couple other slides. I haven't built Joel's. I'm sure Joel's are more effective. Yeah, like I said, there's ways of doing it, ways of being innovative. What the gentleman is referring to is having. Dana, skip a couple of slides down. Show my pasture. You can use that one. So what I should have done, and what Joel has done, is he's got some sort of structure. His are lower to the ground where he can just pick a light like netting or chicken wire structure, and the hens stay under them all the time. So you may not keep 100% of your possums and raccoon and fox out, but you definitely cut back on the owl and the hawks, and coyotes don't get in there because they're too big. So you're keeping a lot of the predators out. Should have done that. With my other job, like I really literally had time to feed and water them in the morning, feed and water them in the evening, and not much else for developing infrastructure. But yes, in my field, let's go one more slide down. Another one. Okay, so this is kind of the top of my field shooting across. So previous years, you can kind of see where I've got the cover crop planted on my old rows, and I'd rotate those rows. But to rebuild soil nutrient, I would take this 5,000 square foot rectangle and just move the chickens down the pasture. And instead of having the fences and things like that, what I should have done and what Joel does is, I don't know how many birds he does a year, but it's probably 6,000 or 8,000, and he probably has them on about twice as much land, and he just moves them every day. He's got little chicken tractors, and he just moves them every day. Chickens peck around, and they'll poop and aerate the soil, and he'll just move it the next day. And what I did was have 250 birds, 200 to 250 birds on 5,000 square foot, and then move the electric fencing. And in the pasture situation, I didn't really have issue with coyotes. I didn't have much fox get in there. I didn't have the possum and the raccoon issue, but I had the raptor issues. Owls and hawks were getting in there all the time. They'd only get in there into a window of about 10 days from them leaving the brooder house to getting too big for a raptor to kill them. So that's what I was dealing with. So after I figured that out, 3 weeks in the brooding house, and then I had that window where they were small enough to be carried off, or really not be able to fend off a raptor. I was putting a few of these together and netting over them to get them through that. So I was going, from my first couple of batches, I was taking about 200 to the processor, to my last few batches taking about 230 to the processor. So I would you'd lose about 5, 6, 7 coming out of the box as chicks, out of the male, and then you'd lose 10 in the brooding house when they were young, and then I'd lose a couple to raptors rather than a couple dozen.
Have you used the aviary net and also the mylar ribbon?
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. You totally do it way better than I'm doing it, but
now we just have a great tyranny that kind of hangs around the area.
What was the kind of structure that you had? Did you just have the aviary netting on posts, and did you move that?
The aviary netting, when I had the fence post up with the temporary, I just kind of drape it over the top and down into the ground, and it kept the hogs and owls and everything out.
At several points I've got 4 of these little mobile structures. We built those on wheels so we can pick those up and move them. And I would pitch those 4, 2 facing another 2, and then net over the top of those. That helped a lot. It looked like big top peewee, because I'd have posts out there and have these big, it was greenhouse netting is what I was using. It was too heavy, really. Sir?
Yeah, I think one of Joel Sullivan's profitability elements is also processing them on farm.
On farm, correct.
Is the issue the same as with sausage in Tennessee?
No, I'm sure it's different.
Poultry is different than sausage. So there is a number, and I think it's 2,000.
You got this tonight.
You can look it up on the TDA website, but I believe the number is 2,000 for on-farm birds processed in Tennessee. 2,500.
20,000, and then it goes up for other stuff.
There you go. So you can process on farm and sell off your farm, and you can process on farm and sell at a lot of farmers markets, but farmers markets are self-regulated. So like Jonesboro Farmers Market, the farmers markets I know of in Knoxville, if they regulate themselves, it's up to the farmers market managers to visit your farm, see your production, say yes, we think that's safe. Any retail environment, like we were selling at the Boone Street Market, we wanted that to be one of our outlets because there wasn't another really chicken producer that was USDA processing because of lack of access to USDA processor. So we used the USDA processor so we could sell at the Boone Street Market. While at processors at 6 o'clock in the morning, I talked to a lot of other chicken farmers, and these chicken farmers were coming from like Raleigh, Durham, Triangle farmers markets, Atlanta farmers markets. They were selling boneless, skinless breasts for $13, $15 a pound, while I was selling them down at the Moon Street Market and at the Jonesboro farmers market for $6 a pound. And they were like, we want to buy all of your chicken breasts and we will go double our money. So we raised our prices, and it really seemed to, we raised it to $8 a pound at the Moon Street Market. That's what it sells for in there now. And we're still underselling ourselves, but we don't, areas markets define themselves by their customers and what people are willing to pay or what we can get.
Yeah, the other issue is organics, because the issue is not just no hormones and no.
There's a lot of
organic
issues.
feed. Is that an issue here?
We didn't see that it was.
Sullivan says he can't get cheap enough feed because he isn't big enough to produce his own feed,
Right.
and he has to get it out of state.
Organic feed is roughly double what. Actually, if you go to like Co-op or Tractor Supply and buy a 50-pound bag of cracked corn or layer pellets, if you were to do that in that scale, like a 50-pound scale of organic feed, you'd be paying twice as much. Sometimes 150% more. We were buying cracked corn from a grower that processed it themselves, and I was getting we'd take 55-gallon drums and get 300 pounds at a time, so we were getting it half the cost of if we're going buying 50-pound bags. So if we did that organically, that would have gone up 300% instead of 150%. So through our 2 venues of sales, we didn't feel like organic was in demand, but pasture-raised was. People didn't want their chickens confined. They didn't want them in cages for their eggs, and they didn't want them in cages for their meat. They wanted the chicken to be able to run around. Whether it got carried off by a hawk, pissed me off, and pissed the chicken off, that's a different story. They wanted to see the chicken running around in the field. And they didn't care whether it was organic. I'm sure there was some percentage of that customer base who would have liked to see it be organic, but wouldn't have liked the $18 a pound skinless, boneless chicken breast. Mike had also been doing this for 6 years and selling at the Jonesboro Farmers Market, so I didn't want to completely change everything that he was doing, because he had a customer base that was built up and liked his chicken. And there is a difference. I mean, believe it or not, I had customers that if I got fed up with some of the death that we had and kept the chickens in the brooding houses longer and under the netting, which gave it smaller access, people. And they didn't know what batch what growing processes I had for each batch. But the comments that we had about our chicken varied with the growth. So what I'm trying to say is that the more access to a larger area and bigger diet diversity really did affect taste. I don't believe that. Just by the feedback that we had.
And the customer noticed it.
Correct.
Is what you're saying.
Without them knowing what I was doing different.
Unsolicited.
Correct.
And your turkeys?
Have we really been talking that long?
Yes, you have.
Turkeys. As weak as you know that, or think or have heard that chickens are, turkey are worse. Somebody around here needs to do turkey, because I hate the fact that every turkey that almost everybody buys comes from 3 farms in our region in the U.S. There are a couple of good turkey growers in North Carolina. We don't really have one in Tennessee. That's why I wanted to do one. We started with 70 birds. I tried 5 different breeds. 3 of them were heritage breeds. 2 of them were your broad-breasteds. I didn't see any real difference in any hardier breed, any ones that could fight off a fox or a possum any better. They all die equally well. So turkeys, we started in a breeding house as well. We moved out into the pasture, and I was overloading the area and the rotation that I had with the chickens in the pasture, so I decided to put the turkeys in the woods. I've got this 3/4 acre section of woods. And it's good. They've got trees to roost in. In theory, it's good for them to be in the woods. But your woods need to be free of everything that will kill a turkey, and mine aren't. I lost turkey. I trapped 7 possum and raccoon in 10 days, one 10-day stretch. And in that 10-day stretch, I had chickens in the wood that time, and I lost 37 birds in that 10 days. There was just some migratory pattern of rodents that came through, wiped my chickens out, and the ones that I didn't trap left. But I've got fox, I've got coyote, I've got owls, I've got red-tailed hawks, I've got possums, a mink. We've got mink. I've got a creek that runs.
So if you can raise those for me.
I lost a lot of turkeys. The key to being more profitable with what I was not profitable with was reduce your losses.
Or supplement it with pelts.
How much is a possum? I can get you some possum.
Not much.
There's an interesting new turkey farm in Virginia near University of Virginia. And he did, it's a British bird that they brought over. And they did 1,300 this year. They have a very good fence system and 2 guard llamas.
Nice.
They started with 1,300 birds, and we processed 1,286.
Wow, that's amazing. Pasture raised. That's amazing.
2 guard llamas.
Yeah.
And a very good
have
fence.
livestock guardians do it. Dogs, donkeys. Anything that will scare off anything else. I've got dogs all around my property, and I thought that would help. My dog's a lap dog. He's a border collie that should be of some help, but he was on golf courses chasing geese for years and doesn't know what to do with a possum. He's like, hey, he thought I was raising possum, I think. I should have. So we had 70 turkeys, and it took 45 to the processor after 5 months. That's a killer, because turkeys, especially heritage breeds, are 10 times more expensive than a chicken chick. Chicken chick, turkey chick, they look exactly the same. $10.80.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you can't overcome that unless you breed your own turkeys or get in with somebody locally that'll breed them cheaper for you. But they're profitable. We got $6 a pound for whole
Ones in
birds.
Virginia, it's a special breed,
Yep.
and it's not just pasture raised, but they slaughter it and dry process it, dry pluck it, and age it for 10 days, and they get $12.50 a pound.
That's amazing. Yeah. Some people, I took a bird. I don't know what it weighed. The person at the Foothills Processor didn't want to pull it out of my trailer. He was scared of it. We had to pull it out. There's 2 of us to pull it out and 2 of us to hang it. It was the processing weight was 34 pounds.
Whoa.
I don't know what it weighed when we were hanging
Is
it,
it
but 34 times 6 is a lot of money for a turkey. So, but we sold all our turkey at $6 a pound. Probably could have got more. They tasted great. You know, it can be profitable. Reduce your losses. I wouldn't. After even the losses of the chicken, I would not say that you need to do any antibiotics on chickens. Turkeys, I lost more turkeys to just them dying over of probably some sort of worm or mite or disease than a predator. So, as much as we charge $6 a pound for a antibiotic-free turkey, growth hormone-free turkey, but probably could have charged more. Probably could have charged what I charged and had them on some antibiotic and not lost 25, 30, 25.
Coccidia is a big problem with turkeys.
Sir?
Coccidia is a big
See, I've never heard of that till now. I probably should research that more.
It's a big problem.
Something like that.
Yeah, they used to use termicin or...
My last slide was this, these eggs here. I average, over the last 3 years, I average a flock of about 50 layers as well, and I normally I sell those off to my neighbors and some at the Boone Street Market, and give them to friends at 90 a ton. But poultry aren't rarely going to do the work for you. But I went to the co-op one day and left the door of the shed open, and that chicken laid that egg right there. I was like, "That's my girl."
All the others were there.
Y'all have any other questions?
Tell them about when they scared them to death. You thought you had the bird flu. Tell them.
Yeah, well, that was the flock of the herd of possum that I think it was I don't remember how many. It was mass death one morning. I came out there and I swear I thought I had the first bird flu in Tennessee. Called the vet in Nashville. Got the TDA out there in 2 hours. You holler bird flu and the TDA doesn't start working. Did necropsies on 2. Took blood samples out of 10. Vet said they were literally scared to death. This is when I had my second flock of chickens I tried up in the wooded block. Possums got in there. She says the possums or raccoons got in there one night, scared them to death, just ran them around till I lost 37 that one night.
Oh.
So they got them out of the woods the next day. We had them in the pasture, and like I said, it was just the birds out there. Profitability. We spent about $8 grand. We made about 13. So I made $5.10 an hour on the labor that I had in turkeys for 9 months.
What does your processor charge?
Depends on
birds?
the cuts.
Yes.
I think it was $260 for a whole bird,
Okay.
and then the cuts obviously bring that up if you're going, liver, hearts, necks, feet, skinless, boneless, all that. You can spend between $5 and $6 a bird doing it all. So Foothills is the most expensive, but they can handle about 2,000 birds a day. Nico is the cheapest, but they can only handle about 200.